Hey everyone, Al Fragnoli, League of Leaders. I am joined today by Lee Herteg. Lee is the fan engagement manager for the Seattle Seahawks. Lee is also a former Central Michigan Chippewa, and it's always good to have Chippewas on. Lee, thanks for coming on with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And as always, fire up Chips.
Fire up, Chips. I love it. So we got a couple questions lined up for you that stem around leadership and around the sports industry and your experiences that you've had, Lee. So you've had several stops so far in your early on in your career here. You've obviously, as we just mentioned, Central Michigan. You got your start there in their athletic department, working in marketing. You've been with the University of Oregon for a while, and now the past 3 years with the Seattle Seahawks. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about your journey in the sports world and what ultimately got you to the role that you're currently in right now?
Yeah. Well, like you said, Central Michigan, I mean, both undergrad and graduate, there. Started off with not knowing what I was going to school for. I think I started out as like computer IT or something in that area. I took like 2 classes and I was like, yeah, not not what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. And so I found sport management and got going with that. No support from the family when I changed majors. They didn't see the value in that at the time. And yeah, I got going and volunteered at the athletic department at Central Michigan, working football games, and it kind of just it spurred from there. Because I mean, normally for a football game, I'd be one of the first people in the stadium, face painted, enjoying the games. Now I got to be in the stadium well before fans showed up, getting things ready to make sure those individuals that I used to be had a great time. I worked there. I worked all the sporting events you could imagine there. Got my feet wet in just about anything and everything. And from there, it just kind of dovetailed, reached out, found a job at the University of Oregon through, another former Chippewa, Tracy Vogelsong, who was out at the University of Oregon at the time. And, so I put my name in the hat and, I reached out to her and said, hey, I'm applying for this job. And, I asked her if she could give me a hand just getting my name in front of the right people. And I don't know if she did or she didn't, but it worked out. And, I got to fly out to Eugene, interview there. It was right after they had beaten Florida State in the Rose Bowl. The reason I know this is because I was trying to go through the interview process while they were doing all of that. So the amount of time between interviews and phone calls and actually visiting out there was kind of expanded a little bit because they were busy running around trying to get everything ready for the Rose Bowl and then into I think it was the national championship. I found out I think a week after the championship, I think they were playing Ohio State. It hurt even more that the Ducks lost at that time to that team. But yeah, I got out to Oregon, and it was just another step in the right direction for me, working football, volleyball, baseball. I mean, in college athletics, you work everything. It doesn't matter what sport, is going on. You're there, you're working, there's times where you're working 3 games in one day, depending on what's going on and what season you're in. And, I loved my time at both CMU and at Oregon. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Every time I watch a Chippewa game on TV or a Duck game, I always start there reminiscent of all the things that I was doing at those locations. But yeah, while I was at the University of Oregon, we had the University of Washington marketing team come down and visit us and just do a job shadow for the day, and so we all, both our teams sat in a room for an hour or two, just kind of talk and shop and talking to each other about how we manage certain things. And then it was during basketball season, so later that night while we were working basketball, they came over and some of the group kind of followed me along around the arena and kind of just walked them through our game day. And one of the guys, the director of marketing at UW, Ryan Mediag, was there. And I talked to him for maybe 20 minutes. It wasn't very long. He was spending a little bit more time with my bosses at the time. And but whatever I said or did, it left a lasting impression on him, because I think it was a year and a half after I had this, time with that group, he gave me a call, and actually I lied. He actually called my boss first to ask permission to talk to me, which kind of was, I've never had that before. My boss came over and said, so you're going to get a call from a guy who works for Seattle Seahawks, used to be at UW. And I was like, oh, Ryan. And she goes, yeah. I'm like, what is he calling me for? And she's like, well, he might have a job for you. And I was like, I didn't know what to say, man. It was surreal, to be honest with you. I remember texting my wife, or girlfriend at the time, and said, hey, might be talking to somebody at the Seattle Seahawks. But yeah, he called and we chatted, and he didn't say anything other than, the way that I treated his group while they were while they came down to the University of Oregon, my hospitality, my demeanor, my attitude, it kind of stuck with him, and he never forgot that. And he said, and they have a job up here, fan engagement manager with the Seattle Seahawks, and he wanted to know if I was interested, and I was like, I'm always open to new possibilities and opportunities. So I talked to him on the phone a couple times, went up to Seattle to interview, and then we played the waiting game for, I think it was a month. And in which time I had pretty much anybody and everybody that I knew in the sport industry call Ryan and leave voicemails and text messages and emails letting him know that I was interested. So much so that his inbox started to fill up on his phone. So now I'm here at the Seattle Seahawks, loving every minute of it. Completely different, world from college athletics in so many different ways, but at the same time, it's kind of the same life, and I'm loving it. Get to meet new people every day, work with new people, and then I get, fellow alumni reaching out, wanting to chat on their podcast. So I guess I must be doing something right. So, I appreciate, like I said, you doing this and asking me to chat, and that's my journey, and wouldn't change it for the world.
I love it. I love it. We love having you on, Lee, and I love your journey. I mean, you went from computers and IT to the Seattle Seahawks. So I think you're doing something right. You definitely made a good decision there. And I love what you talked about when you said that the gentleman who brought you over to your current role right now, his encounter with you was that you had a positive attitude and you took care of his people. And that's really what leadership is really all about, right? You want to be a positive individual and you want to take care of people. So I think that's phenomenal. And kudos to you for doing the right thing and making a great first impression, because it obviously led to your current role right now. So talking about your fan engagement manager role right now, what you do with the Seahawks. I know in the sports world, no 2 days are typically alike. I know that, but in a perfect world, what does your average workday look like?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, when I saw that on your list of questions, I was like, come on, Al, you know better than this.
I know.
But no, I get it. And yeah, typical day looks like, right now we're in the off season, so it's prepping for 2022, and we got the one thing that I have now that I never really had in college athletics is an off season. And so now we're just kind of evaluating what we did this past season, what went well, what didn't, and how can we improve and make sure that our fans have the most amazing time when they come to Lumen Field for game days. It's a little bit different now, just with everything that we're going through. So we have to come up with new ideas. We have to, essentially take what other people are doing and making it better, including ourselves. So that's really what we're doing. Aside from the normal budget talks and making sure that our numbers are right and budgeting for 2022, we had to submit those last week or 2 weeks ago, and it's just all buttoned down to what can we do better. So it's a lot of research, it's a lot of talking to coworkers and even others outside in the sport industry, from college athletics to we got the Kraken here, so we're going checking out the Kraken games to see what they're doing. When the Kraken first started moving in, their game presentation group reached out to us, and we chatted with them numerous times, because they wanted to get a feel for what to expect with the fan base in Seattle. So now we're doing the same. Like, we're watching them. We have questions. We reach out. Same with the Mariners. The Storm. We've got a whole bunch of college athletics in and around the area. So it's a lot of research, and then listening to our fans. I think that's probably one of the biggest things. Especially in a down year. They have a lot to say. And so we want to know what they have to say and get some reasoning behind it, so that when we're doing our research, we're looking at the right things. And then, it's planning, just getting ready. We got training camp coming up in 4 or 5 months. That's a big one. That's kind of what kicks off our season. We have another smaller thing that we do called the 12 Tour, where we go out as an organization into the community. We pick a spot within the state, or even, potentially up into Canada or down to Oregon, even as far over to the east as, Idaho. And we go and we visit them. We hang out with them. It's usually bringing a couple of legends out with us, or some current players, and just engaging our fan base and letting them know we're excited that they're a part of our team and our organization, and we want them to know that we need them there come game day, because that's what makes the stadium such a home field advantage on game days. And then, like I said, once the season comes, it's go time. And we've got 10 home games to wow those fans. A little bit different than college athletics, where we have a couple hundred events between all the sports. And I think that was kind of one of the biggest adjustments for me, is understanding that we only have 10 home games to make a difference. So we have to really be, as my boss would say, buttoned up, and we got to make sure everything is ready to go, and we're putting the best product out that we can outside of the game itself. So that's kind of a very vague, but I mean, right now that's what we're doing. Now, come game days or in season, it's all taking all that stuff that we research for and putting it into motion. I tell people that I feel like kind of like the Wizard of Oz. I'm the guy behind the curtain. I put all of it out there, make sure everybody has a good time, and then I sit back and watch, making sure everybody's enjoying themselves. Those individuals don't know what it takes to put on some of that stuff, but as long as they're there, they're having a good time and they're enjoying themselves, I'm just sitting there and I'm happy. So, that's in a nutshell. That's a somewhat average day.
Right, Lee. Well, coming from a college athletics background, I love that you are now getting to enjoy the off season. So you keep enjoying that off season, because, as you mentioned, there, college athletics is a grind all year long. I love that you also mentioned that the Seahawks take the time in the off season to really look at the surrounding sports teams and what the other teams are doing. I think that shows a good strength to the leadership core that you guys have there. And you guys are focused on constantly learning and growing and looking at what other teams are doing. And I think that's a great characteristic that you guys have there. So thank you for sharing that. Going on to talk about the Chippewas. Let's talk about the Fire Up Chips over here, Central Michigan. We obviously know you got your start there. You got your undergrad, your master's degree there. Talk a little bit about the educational experience and the work experience, how both of those came together at Central Michigan and were able to help you ultimately be prepared for success in the sports world.
Yeah, I mean, I look back at it and it's grown. I still stay in touch with some of the professors over there, and I'm always watching to see what the students are doing, because some of the students reach out to me and have questions or need to interview somebody in the sport industry, and so I try to stay in touch and help out and give back in any way that I can. But I think the individuals that helps in the educational side get me into athletics in general, like they've done it, they've been in it, they've been involved with it, and they have relationships and connections that can help us. And so, like I said, Professor Adler, he said, hey, go talk to Mike Dabbs over at Central Michigan University athletic department, and he might be able to help you out, get involved, because we did a big project, and I went and talked to people at the Great Lakes Loons and their marketing team and their game presentation staff, and I really enjoyed what they had to say, and they wanted to get involved. And so talked to Mike Dabbs, and he's like, yeah, we'd love to have you, help out. And I don't think he understood what that meant when he told me he'd like to have me help out. So I'm not sure I ever left their offices once they said that. It was either going to class or going over to the athletic department and just kind of sitting there and being a sponge, listening and watching and helping out wherever I could. Another one, Dan Heck, he was now at Auburn. Like, I learned so much from them, and Nick Williams, once I kind of got to a full-time job, and, Nick Williams was helping me out, who's now a professor in the sport management at Central Michigan. Like, all those guys really just kind of paved the way. And, so for me, it was learning and then taking that knowledge and applying it. But then, like I said, helping out the next wave of individuals that are trying to break into this industry, because it's tough right now. But I have no doubts that that Central Michigan students have the leg up over a lot of other sport managements across the country, because we get in there, we do our thing. It starts off with hard work, but then, like I said, bringing those ideas. And, we always say that marketers and game presentation individuals are some of the best thieves in the world, because we take someone else's idea and make it our own. And that's really what we do. We take it, we craft it to make it fit our game days and our fan bases, to make sure that they have a great time. But, I wouldn't be sitting here talking with you from, Seattle, Washington, if it weren't for the education that I've got, and the professors and educators at Central Michigan. And then, like I said, getting me involved with college athletics at Central Michigan. I never in my wildest dreams thought it would get me to where I'm at now. Like I said, when I told my parents I was changing from IT over to college athletics, they weren't happy about it. But I'll tell you right now, they're some of my biggest supporters now that, they've seen where I've gone and what I've done.
That's awesome, Lee. And Central Michigan holds a special place in my heart as well. I still keep in touch with quite a few people from there, but you mentioned some amazing people, and Mike Dabbs and Dan Heck, and all the great things that some of these people are doing. Professor Adler, I know he cares about students deeply in his role there. Dr. Mumford is somebody I still keep in touch with. Dr. Chandler, Dr. Mackey, all great people. And they ultimately, from the educational piece, you nailed it. They help get you into those positions and get you in touch with the right people. So fire up chips, as we've said 20 times so far today.
Absolutely. Like I said, they lived it, they've done it. And, I couldn't thank them enough for the education that they supplied me and our class, all of our classmates and everyone that's gone through that program. They've done an amazing job.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. Lee, the sports industry, as we know, incredibly competitive industry. Everybody wants to be in it. It's a sexy industry. People love it. What are several things that you think people need to do to get into the sports industry and sustain a career?
Yeah, I think my answer has changed. I think I've been asked this question quite a bit over the last, 7-8 years. And I think it's changed over the last 3. First it was be willing to outwork your opponents and your classmates, because at the end of the day, they're your competition. And, that still holds true. You need to outwork everyone else so that, you kind of stand out. But everybody's got a great work ethic that wants to get into this organization. And now it's more of building relationships, talking to them, not only just reaching out and say, hey, I want to do an informational interview. Would you help, spend some time with me? And then kind of listening to what they say and then never talking to them again. You really need to keep that relationship going, because you never know who they might know, or who, if they're willing to help you get that next job or that next step up, because someone's always watching. But too, I mentioned it, you got to come with ideas. I think you got to be able to look at what's going on. You got to look at the trends in the world. And, even the small, things of what's trending on Netflix right now. What can we take from those? Because, there's a ton of eyes on those. What ideas can we take from stuff like that and bring it into, our game days, from music to activities, it's gonna it's gonna sound funny, but I was watching Sing 2 with my family last weekend, and it's funny. I was watching it, and it was a good movie, right? I'm a big music guy, but I was sitting back thinking, wow, all the things that crew is doing right now to put on this huge production. That's what I do. 10 games out of the year, that's what I'm doing. And it was funny. I was telling my boss that, and he just starts laughing because he said the same thing. He goes, I sit at movie theaters or watch movies with my kids, and I think the same thing, like, what can I take from it? And so, like I said, you got to be up to date on what's going on in and around the sport industry, but pop culture, anything that's going on that has a lot of eyeballs, and then, try and get some inspiration from it. I think those are the big things. Work ethic is going to be huge, but like I said, everybody's willing to work hard for it. You got to find those things that are going to stand out to others. And like I said, you never know who's watching or what you're doing. But like I said, my current boss reached out to me solely because I treated him and his staff well. And at the end of the day, it was I treated them like I would any other fan that's coming through our doors. I want them to have a great time. I want them to enjoy themselves. I want them to have that feeling of, I need to come back, because that was a great experience. I accomplished it because he came back and he reached out to me. He remembered me. Like I said, 20-minute conversation. A day just kind of hanging out with the staff, and he remembered. So. I think those are the biggest pieces for me.
So you mentioned a couple of things that really stuck out to me. And I think this first thing that I'm going to share, I think this is the marketing side of you that's coming out when you mentioned going to like the movie, for example, or other venues and seeing what stands out and why people are enjoying it or whatnot. There is so much money that people, can spend their discretionary money on, so many different variety of things. And there's so many experiences. Going to a movie is an experience, right? As we know, going to a Seattle Seahawks football game is an experience. So how are you going to get that discretionary money so that they spend it with you guys as opposed to going and doing something else? So I love that you're looking at what's going on at the movie theater to see if you can take any little strategies away to potentially use them to your advantage with the Seahawks. I love that. You mentioned something that I think slips people's minds so much is building relationships. I think a lot of people look at networking and just getting to know as many people as you possibly can, and then how can they benefit you, and then never talking to them again. You mentioned building the relationships and keeping in touch with those people. I love it because I think whatever we do in life is all about the relationships that we build. They must be genuine. It's not just how it's going to benefit you, but really taking a vested interest in people. So I love that you brought that up. So some great valuable information there, Lee. Jumping into our next question. So you're obviously in a leadership capacity with the Seahawks. What are some of the traits that you believe make up some of the best leaders?
Ooh, that's a great question. I look for individuals, from a leadership standpoint that's willing to work there with you. Individuals that have done it, are willing to get their hands dirty. I always tell anybody I work with that I'm not going to ask them to do something that, one, I'm not willing to do myself, or two, have already done it multiple times, because I think that's huge. I think that just gives you credibility. And, I think, the people that I work with, I hope, one, they agree with me when I say that I do that. But two, I want to make sure that they feel part of the organization or the group that we're in. I want them to feel comfortable with speaking up if they think that something can be done differently, or if they have an idea. Like I said, ideas is key. Bring those ideas. So I want to make sure that they feel comfortable enough to talk to me, reach out to me, whether it's, text, email, phone call. I don't care what time of the day. Like, I'll respond. It may not be right away, as you know. You asked me to do this like 6 months ago, and we're just now finally getting to it. I feel like communication is 100% and very important. You have to be transparent, letting people know what's going on, let them know what our goals are, what we're trying to accomplish. And then, like I said, being right there with them as we work through it to try and, get to that goal. So I think those are two huge pieces to any leader. And two, or actually three, I guess, you gotta have fun. You have to. Like, you shouldn't have to feel like you're going into a job or working with somebody where you have to feel like you're walking on eggshells. I want you to be yourself. There's a time and place for when we have to be professional. We have to be, forward facing with our fans, but same time, I want you to enjoy yourself. Now, when I say enjoy yourself, I don't mean, hey, we're working a pregame event before our game gets kicked off. I don't need you on your phone, checking your fantasy stats or, watching the games that are on the board. There's a time and a place for that. But when we're working, we got to be, all on the same page. But yeah, got to have fun, transparency, and, you got to be willing to get your hands dirty.
Mentioned so many key points here, Lee. A couple of them that I took away. So the have fun that you just mentioned right there, I think that stems around the positive energy, which you obviously have. That's huge. Transparency. Everybody wants to work for a leader that is being open and honest with them, right? So transparency is huge. Communication. There's so many organizations that struggle both internally and externally with communication. So that's obviously huge. And then you mentioned a couple key pieces that I thought were huge. You want people to feel comfortable. So obviously, if somebody feels comfortable coming to you with the situation, that's huge. And you want people to feel like they're part of the organization. So we've seen, especially during this pandemic, people are leaving companies in droves. They want to feel like what they're doing is making an impact. And they want to feel like they're a part of the organization. They want to feel like their voice is being heard. So the fact that you mentioned these key points is awesome. I love it because if leaders miss this portion and they don't stay in tune with their people, they're going to ultimately lose people. And unfortunately, some of it is going to be top talent. And then to fill that void is going to be incredibly challenging. So I love what you shared there. So fantastic stuff. Lee, thank you for sharing that. So we're going to wrap it up. I know you've given us a ton of information. One last question. Share one piece of advice for those that are looking to break into the sports world right now in 2022.
Whew. Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, like I said, you got to come with ideas. I can't stress that enough. This is a tough industry right now to get into. It was tough 10 years ago, before pandemic and everything, but now it's even tougher, right? Like you got people that unfortunately lost their jobs because of the pandemic. Those jobs just now are starting to come back, but there's so many people in that pool that are looking to get in that the competition is tight and tough. And so coming with ideas and setting yourself apart is just huge in any way that you can. I had an old intern, just a couple of weeks ago, reach out to me. He had to step away for a couple of years, wants to get back involved, wants to get that full-time job. And I had to tell him, like, you're not going to go from not working in sport to a full-time job, most likely. It's tough right now. So you're going to have to do the dirty work. You're going to have to volunteer. You're going to have to get involved in one way or another. Just because you want a job in game presentation and marketing does not mean that you have to apply for just those positions. Work as a front office assistant, mailroom, like ticketing, corporate partnership, like just get your foot in the door. All that other stuff can come. It may take a little bit longer, but you can't fast track to it right now. It's just too tough to get into this industry. And I'm excited that those jobs are starting to come back and people are starting to get back and involved, because that just means there's more individuals on our side, people that I know that people that I went to school with, people that I've worked with that are, you know, getting their foot back in the door. And, you know, that means so much to me because, like I said, those relationships are everything. And Chippewas are everywhere in this organization, or in this industry. So I'm always trying to keep on, you know, up with who's where and what they're doing. You know, every year we go to an away game, you know, just to learn from a different organization. This past year we went to Houston. A few years ago we went out to Atlanta. And while we were going to Atlanta, we're like, hey, we're coming in on a Friday night. The Atlanta Hawks basketball team is playing, and I just happened to have talked to an individual who was just graduating from Central Michigan, who was helping out at the Hawks at the time. And I reached out and said, hey, we're coming, you know, could you hook us up and show us around? And absolutely, he had no problem doing that. And just found out he's now over with the Lions right now. So I just reached out to him and said congrats, and told him welcome to the league. And, you know, so just trying to stay in touch with those individuals. But yeah, try to stand out, bring those ideas, and those are the things that are really going to hit home when you're talking to individuals in this industry. And then, as we've touched on, and as you've touched on about your podcast, got to have fun, got to stay positive at all times. You know, no matter what's going on in the world or what's going on in the industry, have fun and enjoy yourself.
I love it. All great stuff, Lee. We can't thank you enough for coming on and taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. It has been awesome. We always love having Chippewas on. As you know, I'm just gonna keep saying Chippewas. So we love it. Fire up, Chips. Thank you. Keep doing great things in Seattle, and don't work too hard in the off season here. Enjoy some downtime.
Always having a good time and always working hard. You know, I'll say one final thing. You know, I got when I got the job, there was a little piece of home. My coworker, unfortunately, his name's Dan. He went to Western Michigan, and so we had a little rivalry between the two. And so we both have our mini helmets right between our two desks. Well, then I don't know how this happened. Actually, the guy came from Detroit Lions. They just hired another individual who happens to be named Dan, who also went to Western Michigan. So I'm sandwiched between two Broncos by the name of Dan. So the more we can say fire up, Chips, the better, because I do it every day.
Make sure you share this with your coworkers and stay strong. Stay true to your Chippewa pride.
Always.
All right. Thanks, Lee. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Al. Fire up, Chips.